I'm Don Bowman with Agilicus, where we make any application available to any user on any device from anywhere. And today I'm going to talk about that ubiquitous sign in with button that you've seen. And I know you've seen this. You've gone to some website and maybe you have an account on it like Dropbox, and you see a sign in with Google or sign in with Apple or sign in with Microsoft identity there. And you're like, what is that? Why would I want to do that? And the side effect of that indecision is you might just go ahead and create yet another account, another username, another password. And what I want to talk to you about today is why would you use sign in with? How does it work? And why is it actually more secure? Why is it in your interest to do that? So what happens? You go to some site, in this case it's Dropbox, and you click login, and you see there's a sign in with Google, there's a sign in with Apple, and then there's a create account, username, password. So what happens when you click on sign in with Google? Well, mechanically, the first thing that happens, you click that, and you get this little pop-up. And you see there's a couple of items I've squiggled in red. The first, sign in with Google, that's telling you what that window is. Second, it's telling you what will happen when you do that. You're going to continue to Dropbox. So after this window goes away, you're going to be returned to Dropbox. The third is you'll have a list of your Google accounts. You may have more than one. You might have a corporate Google Workplace G Suite account. You might have a school account, etc. Now, you may think of this as just an email address, Don@gmail, but it's actually not. It's an identity, and there's a really big distinction there. There's lots of different ways you could have an email address, but only a few of the different email providers are also identity providers. So we click on that button, and it tells us below how this data is going to be used. You can click on the privacy policy and what data is there. So, okay, that was straightforward. I know what will happen. If I click on that button, I'm going to end up being shown a Google login. I'll click on that, and immediately I'll be back at the Dropbox site, but logged in. There was no new password. That was great, but how'd that work? So let's start. So I am me. I'm a single identity. I'm Don. I might have more than one email address, Don at work, Don at home, but those are aliases for me. I have a single identity, which is who I am. And I think of my device and I think about, okay, I want to use that to log into some web application. That web application, which is run by, my corporation or something that I want to use personally, it has a trust relationship. So that web application, in the last case, Dropbox, has agreed that they will use Google as an identity provider. And that means that if Google says they trust the user, then they will trust the user. So I open my browser on my device. I go to Dropbox. Dropbox gives me the choice of logging in with Google. I click yes. I'm redirected in my browser to Google. I then do some math in there to prove who I am, and I'm returned to Dropbox. There's no time ever that Dropbox gets any password from me. They don't have one. Google agreed to let me in or not, but Dropbox doesn't have that. Secondly, you're not granting Dropbox access to your Google account. That's not how this works. Google is asserting to Dropbox, yeah, I know who that person is. They're not saying, yeah, and then that person can send email or snoop around or something on your behalf. That's not what's happening here. It's an identity relationship. So you might have multi-factor turned on your Google account. And in fact, I highly encourage it. In fact, why don't you hit pause and you go do that right now? Why don't you go turn it on and tell it to use an authenticator application or some biometric or something like that, or go buy a YubiKey and come back. But when you do, what about multi-factor? So that normal authentication flow that you saw there, it could include multi-factor. Google could say, I need to see a second factor in order to prove who you are, and then it could go back to Dropbox and say, yeah, I'm doubly secure. I know who that person is. Alternatively, and that's what's happened in this case, Dropbox could say, well, I have a two-factor thing. Yes, I trust Google. Google said that person was who they say they were, but when they returned, I want to prove that they have that second factor. In this case, you can see it's my YubiKey, my USB-based device. I'm being asked to enter it. Okay, so now this is pretty great so far, But what happens when we end this long trust relationship and I say, you know what, that website's gone bad. I don't want to use it anymore. I know that I've created a relationship where I can sign into it using my credentials, but yeah, we're over. So each of the different identity providers has a method to remove that trust relationship. Here I'm showing the one for Google. You go to your Google account, you click security. It shows you how many other sites. In this case, I'm signing into 27 sites with this Google account. And when I click on it, I'm given a list of them. In this case, I'm showing the one for our corporate Agillicus login. And you can see what did you grant access to. So sometime in the past, we gave the Agillicus login application what's called basic info or profile. And profile means they get your email address. And what's happening there is the Agillicus login application uses my Dawn@gmail account as a key. So I go to our web login, it sends me to Google, it comes back, it says, okay, that's your identity. The second thing is you can see what access has been given here. In this case, Agillicus.ca, Agillicus.com are two corporate websites. And then when that access was granted. In this case, it was granted on the 9th of March. If I click remove access here, it doesn't matter what Agillicus login thinks or believes. Google has removed that trust relationship. It's gone. And in this case, if that website gets a breach or something else and you're worried, you just come here and remove the access. Boom. It's that simple. The neat thing about this is how many different accounts do you have out there? You might have 100 plus accounts, and you may say, oh, well, I don't believe you, but go look in your password manager or your history. You're going to rapidly find there's a lot more than you think because it's every one you've ever created in your life. Do you remember that MySpace account you created one day 20 years ago? It's still out there. So here you've got one spot to go and remove access to literally anything. It's so much simpler. You've only got one password. It's with Google. You've only got one spot to change your password. It's with Google. You've only got one spot to set up two-factor authentication. It's with Google. And you've only got one spot to go and revoke access to anything. It's with Google. And there are other the standard is called OpenID Connect. There are other providers of identity. I mentioned Apple is one. Twitter will act as one, GitHub will act as one, Facebook will act as one. The most common you see is login with Google. That's because they've done a really good job of making the identity platform simple for folks to use. So what are you giving up by doing this? There must be a trade-off, right? Short answer is I don't think there's a trade-off. I think that you win everything and you lose nothing. So you're clicking on login with Google, login with LinkedIn. The first time you do this, you're going to be given a little screen that shows what the requesting site is asking for. And this is the one thing you got to watch. So here in this case, which is my demo application, the City of eGov, when I log in with LinkedIn, it's requesting what LinkedIn calls a light profile, which is name, photo, and email address. There's nothing less I can ask. This means that once I've logged into eGov, LinkedIn is going to return to it those three items: email address, link to photo, link to name. And the application will now know your first name, last name, and email address, which is what you were going to type in on the profile screen anyway. If you're concerned about it, LinkedIn is showing you how you'll go remove the trust, like I showed you earlier with Google, and they're talking about the terms of service of, in this case, the demo application, City of eGov. I think this is a great win. So you've only got one spot that has your name, your email, your profile, your password, and then you can control who uses it. But you do want to watch out. If you go to log into some site and this list is longer and it says it's asking for access to your email, your calendar or something, that's a different flow, and that's something that you would need to consider on a case-by-case basis. If you're using an automatic calendar booking service, yes. If it's just something you think you're signing into to buy something and they want access to your calendar, probably no. So the short answer, if you took nothing else away, should I use sign in with? Yes, always. Every chance you get, use this. Don't create a new account. Don't use a new username. Don't use a new password. If it's sign in with my corporate, do that. If it's sign in with my personal, do that. Every time you get the chance. you're going to be safer, you're going to be more secure, and your life is going to be simpler. And that's a big win. There's no downside here. So thanks very much. I'd love to see if you have any comments. Please post them below or reach out to me. Tell me what you think. Yay, nay, good, bad, ugly. Thanks very much, and bye-bye.